Coming up, we're going to share our thoughts and feelings about Jurassic World Velocicoaster and the updated safety protocols at Universal Orlando Resort, plus the Summer Food Festival that, as of the time we're recording this, is still not announced, but we do know it's happening. All of that's happening and more on this episode of the Dis Unplugged Universal Edition. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of the Dis Unplugged Universal Edition. I'm your host, Craig Williams. Today, I'm joined alongside by my co-host, Rhino.
Hello.
And we are going to have a lot of fun. Before we get started, though, I do have to remind you that this video is brought to you by Dreams Unlimited Travel. If you like us and our content and you want to support us, please book your next Universal vacation through Dreams Unlimited Travel. It will cost you no extra money, and they're there to help you as much or as little as you want. So get a free no obligation quote today at dreamsunlimitedtravel.com. Also, please make sure that you hit the thumbs up on the video here if you're enjoying it. Please make sure you're subscribed. This is on the UO Fan channel now, youtube.com/UO Fan. So it's not Dis Unplugged. Make sure you are subscribed so that way you are staying up to date with all of our new Universal videos and Dis Unplugged Universal Edition shows. Maybe the name will change. I don't know. We'll have to see what happens with that. But please make sure you're subscribed to this new channel so that way you don't miss out on any content. And then, of course, leave any comments, questions, video suggestions in the comments section below. And for all the audio people out there, hey, it's still coming to the same feed that you've known and loved for years and years, so don't you worry about it. Just make sure you're still subscribed to us wherever you listen to podcasts, and then if you're listening specifically through Apple Podcasts, leave that positive ratings and reviews for us. Okay, now we've got to get on with the show, and we've got a big one coming up. And of course, we have to talk about Jurassic World Velocicoaster. We're not going to go super in-depth with it because, A, it doesn't officially open until June 10th, and B, Rhino and I actually already released a video with our first impressions and first thoughts of Jurassic World Velocicoaster right after we got off of the attraction for the first time. So I don't want to completely just retread that information because I think it's actually really awesome to be able to watch our first reactions after getting off of the new apex predator of roller coasters.
Yeah.
But obviously, there's a lot of people out there who only listen, and the audio from that video is pretty terrible because we filmed it right outside of a roller coaster, and it's a little bit hard to listen to. So we do need to recap a little bit. So, it's you can choose to just bypass all of this if you listen to our first impressions video, if you want. But I actually would not skip over it because we then had the chance to ride the very next day for a media event, and I rode it 6 times that day. Rhino rode it 5 times, and we rode it in all different seats. So that way now we have a lot to share about where we think is actually the best rides on Jurassic World Velocicoaster. But Rhino, let's just get it out of the way right away here. How do you still feel about the ride now?
Oh, I think it's an excellent roller coaster. No question. I think I think it's scary. I think it is exciting. It's thrilling. I really can't see somebody walking away from it being upset, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I completely feel the same way. I mean, you could walk away from it being upset if you're afraid of massive coasters. Because this is...
But then you're to blame for getting on it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's obviously a big, fast coaster. As you're standing there watching it, you can see it from all around Islands of Adventure. It's not a surprise of what you're getting into with this. I've been trying to describe it to people as... I like to say it's it's a child that came from the parents of the Incredible Hulk coaster mixed with Hagrid's mixed with Hollywood Rip Ride Rocket. It's like a blending of all three coasters together. You have the upside down and some of the speed thrills from the Hulk. You have some of the same speed thrills and the tight twists and turns that you have from Hagrid's, but then you have that height that you can find at the Hollywood Rip Ride Rocket over in Universal Studios Florida. So it's kind of like different elements from those three attractions came together to make the apex predator of roller coasters. I'm gonna not stick to Universal's language on this too much, but it really is for Universal. It is another new type of coaster that they just didn't have before, and it's really good.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, is how it kind of feels like this amalgamation of all those things, but then provides you with like a totally new type of an experience that is just like, I just sometimes I think I'm like, I can't even believe I did this.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because it's pure insanity, and I'm gonna hopefully have chapters in here. I'm gonna remember to do it for audio. I know that doesn't matter, but for video, I'm gonna have chapters in so you can stick ahead. Just little spoilers here, not really, because it's
well. Can we do
what? Sorry.
Can we do a non-spoiler thing really quick? Because I know
Yeah.
this is really important to. Okay, because I know you and I posted similar photos where we were out front of the attraction on our social media, on like Instagram and stuff like that. And I feel like, I don't know about you, but the question that came up a lot in that post for me was, a lot of people were comparing it to Hagrid's. Better than Hagrid's? Question mark. And I do honestly, I feel like I want to say this before we get into that spoiler territory, is that it's like apples and oranges in terms of that, where like Hagrid's, I still don't think there's anything like Hagrid's. That it is an actual story that literally has, you just talked about chapters in this YouTube video. The roller coaster has chapters.
Yeah.
I think. And it's different than other roller coasters that like the Hulk will say, where all of its stories until it launches and then you're on a roller coaster. I think Velocicoaster's a little bit more than that, but it's still, in terms of like, I can't compare the two. I don't think that's the hard part. And but I do think that's the thing that people want a lot, is they keep comparing it to it. I just want to say, in terms of it being an accomplishment in the way that Hagrid's was for Universal, this is another accomplishment, a phenomenal build for them.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. I don't know necessarily if the two should even be compared, because I
don't think so.
They are very, very different. But it's obviously, we still have to compare them anyways. And we said in the other review we did, you still are more on Team Hagrid. I'm on Team Velocicoaster right now. But honestly, it just depends what you want from the attraction overall.
Yeah, exactly.
This is, there is a story built up in this ride, but ultimately this is a roller coaster versus Hagrid's, Hagrid's is an attraction, and with the show scenes and the show elements that they put into the actual experience. So,
and it tries to be accessible to everybody. This was like, hey, roller coaster people, we got something special for you.
And that's even built into the story of this. This is literally made as part of Jurassic World. It is a roller coaster that allows you to go on the hunt with velociraptors. So it's not even like oh, we're on a special vehicle that's going to send us out into the hunt. No, we are on a roller coaster. That's what you're there for as part of the story.
Also, I just love how that theming rolled right into itself so beautifully, though, where I was like, it's just something where like Jurassic Park has always been sort of that, like, if you've read the books or anything like that, is always sort of this commentary on theme parks and entertainment. And Jurassic World really took that thread and said, okay, well, we never really like pushed that part of the story in the movies as much. So let's make it where, like, what if it was like a fully realized theme park, and then it would be like Jurassic World. So let's truly make it like Disney World or something like that. And it's just so great because of where this attraction fits in that timeline. I just think it's like, wow, it really makes me feel like I am stepped into that part of the film, before everything goes wonky. But like,
yeah. No, I completely agree with that, and we're still not really talking spoilers with this right here. But the one thing I did, as I was saying, we're going to get into spoilers ish. It's not really that much because this was part of the releases as they were leading up to it, and it's pretty well known if you've seen any videos of it. The roller coaster Velocicoaster is basically split into two separate coasters. You have the first section, which it starts with a launch through a series of tight winding turns as you're like going in and around the rocks. It's exciting. It is you just feel that close proximity. You don't know how fast you're going because of how tight it all really is. And there's points where you're like, am I upside down or am I not?
Yeah.
I have no idea what's happening. But then the second part of the coaster starts with your launch going from 40 miles an hour up to 70 miles an hour as you climb up to the
Oh my gosh, yeah.
155-foot top hat and then go plunging down into the really long portion of the coaster that, the cherry on top is that final Mosasaurus roll that happens right over the water, which is so terrifying.
Terrifying. Yeah.
I got the first time Rhino and I went on it, I was pretty much holding on tight to the lap bar the entire time, not knowing what was going to happen, and especially knowing it was like, oh, it's upside down. I've not done a lot of attractions that go upside down without the over the shoulder restraints.
Yeah, I had never done one.
Yeah, I've maybe done two, I think three in my entire life. So, and it's been a while. So this one, I was like, that first time I'm holding on to the lap bar and like that. And then the first time we went on for the media day, I just kind of went in with a I don't care attitude, and I'm like, I'm hands up right from the start, and I can keep my hands up this entire attraction no matter where I was sitting. But the Mosasaurus roll over the water, it's just the forces on it that makes you feel like you're being thrown out of your seat. They are so intense.
Yeah.
That's the only part where I struggle to keep my hands up because I'm like, nope, I'm going out if I don't hold on with at least one hand. And I know it's not going to happen. No one's getting thrown out of this thing, but that's just how crazy this coaster is. The airtime.
Yeah, that's why I screamed to you the first week, because the first time we rode it, we were the front row, and I did not expect that at all. And so the first, you take off, like really Craig said, you're going 40 miles an hour, and it's a launch coaster too, which is great. But I was just like, I'm gonna fall out. I just kept screaming because I didn't expect my butt to not make contact with the seat as much as it did. So I was just like, I was legit like that first time we rode it. It got past the top hat. It was after you go over the bridge upside down and then you turn back around, and it was the back and forth, and I remember thinking in my head, I just paused for a second and was like, we still have to go upside down one more time. And I remember just being like, I think I'm going to die. Like, I just had this moment where I was like, am I screaming for real now? And I don't know, it was thrilling. And obviously I went and did it again, but I couldn't believe, there was so many surprises that took me, it's the sensation of what you feel versus what you're seeing and expecting what you're going to feel are just so completely different on this. But I do have to say that my body, in terms of how I felt, I mean, I did take Dramamine both days before I went, just one pill. I didn't feel, my head didn't feel off. My body, I mean, it was my adrenaline was racing. Craig can testify. I stepped out and my hand was shaking. But I didn't feel like when I go on, the only time I've done the Hulk, I literally felt like somebody had ripped all of my body parts apart and put them back together.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't like coasters that test that aspect of your endurance, Rock and Roller Coaster, which I've done and will do, when it does its loops, it pushes you down into the seat. I feel like this is the first time I've ever done anything where it never felt like at any moment there was something pushing on me, or it was rather that it was pushing away from me. So I didn't experience any of that sort of weird stress, I guess. on anything, which I was kind of shocked about.
Yeah, it's a new species of coaster at Universal Orlando. There's that brand marketing once again, and I think that's kind of it in terms of non spoiler sections. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and definitely with the video on YouTube, I'm going to say now, click to the next chapter if you don't want more spoilers about what happens in the queue portion and other little parts of it. And with audio, I'm going to go ahead and also say it right now so I remember it. I'm going to go ahead and tell you what time to skip ahead to, so that way you can skip over all of this if you want to. And this is your final warning right now. Here we go. Rhino is for the queue. This is where a good amount of the story is set up, and the guide along the way for it, for the most part, was a surprise to me. Is actually Mr. DNA. Like,
I love that. Yeah.
I don't know whose idea it was to pull Mr. DNA out and make him the person who is the spokesperson for what you are going to experience, how to put stuff in lockers, like all those little touches that you need to have that are informational for an attraction. I don't know who decided to put them in, but as soon as he pops up on screen, it's just so exciting. And it might not be the best Mr. DNA voice, but it's also, you hear it and like, it's Mr. DNA.
Yeah. Yeah, I right away, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't care if anything else, whatever else happens. I was just like, I'm just so thrilled for this right now. And there are, I think the queue did really good. I mean, there are some other people that we get to see along the way as well.
Yeah. Well, and I even like the first start. So we've had actually the blessing of waiting in the extended queue as well too. So, and that's all. We're going to get to the safety protocols, but it's the extended queue will get used. But when we were waiting on a day when you still had to have 6 feet between every party, that did allow us to get into the extended queue, which you get a great look at the Mosasaurus roll when you are down there.
You're like right there. It's crazy.
It's right there. You can get some great photos as people are going by. And one day, if the coaster, like I wish they would have built an area where you could just walk down. I know it's part of the queue, so if they need it, it has to be there. But it would be great if one day you could just like always walk down and have that perfect viewing area, the same way that River Adventure, you have the area you can stand and watch the splashdowns. But I digress with that. But we've waited in that part of the queue. And then the first section of the queue that you really get to wait in is where you get to see the statue of the 4 different Velociraptors. And it's kind of like the icon statue of it all.
Like that whole area as you walk in, it's such an interesting, aesthetically, I think it's like, yes, this looks exactly like Jurassic Park, Jurassic World to me, because it's that metal grates that we remember from the opening of like Jurassic Park, right? When they're transferring the raptor, and it eats the guy, and like it's crazy because shooter. I just love how wide open the entrance is.
Yeah.
It's like this massive. I'm just trying to think of anything else like it where I'm like, oh, it's so cool that this essentially is a building that doesn't have a side to it.
Yeah.
And I just think it's really cool. It adds that feeling because as you go through the queue, it gets tighter and tighter as you go.
It does. Oh, no, absolutely. In that statue of the 4 raptors in the little roller coaster top hat hill, that is essentially the weenie that you can see that from the very entrance looking back in. You're like, oh, I want to get closer to that. And then you have Mr. DNA popping on like I already mentioned, they have this awesome lighting effects that happen in that whole area too with the Jurassic Park music. It sets the scene.
Did you know? Okay, so because before that, where you're going to enter, like down the hill, there's like 2 raptors on either side as you're walking up. I just learned that those 2 raptors are meant to be a specific reference to Dueling Dragons because they're in the same position as the 2 dragons were at each other on either side of the entrance, and I've seen a side by side photo of it. It was somebody he was asked if he could put it in there, one of the designers, and they were like, "Yeah, sure, we don't care."
I never saw that in
I never saw it in
the
person.
entrance.
Yeah.
But luckily Corey had a lot of photos from Dueling Dragons era period of Islands of Adventure. So I've seen it plenty of times, and I'll try to mash it all up and see if I can get the comparison going with it. But yeah, so as we said, that kind of pulls you into the queue. And the next room that you go into is one of the coolest parts. And if you've been following on social media, you know, you've probably seen this. This is the long hallway that has windows out where you will see the roller coaster car launch into the top hat section. So every couple minutes you will see the lighting in the room will change from blue and white lights all of a sudden to flashing red, and then the coaster will the car's going to scream right past. But then you have all these velociraptors that are running after the train, and they'll stop and they'll move. And one of the Easter eggs is in this room. They have the glass of water that's sitting with the ripples. Very, very difficult to see. It is a very dark room. But, you know, as soon as you're like, the first time Rhino and I walked through, I knew to look for it, but I didn't see it. And then when we went back, then it finally, the only reason I spotted it as quickly as I did, it was hilarious. One of the media reps was walking through to make sure that the queue was photo ready for everyone. I was right at the front, and he was trying to pick it up and move it. He's like, "Who left this there?" And then finally, oh my gosh, that's supposed to be there. And I love little touches like that. It's perfect. But yeah, watching. I think
once you're like you're waiting in a normal paced queue, I think your eyes will be able to adjust to that a little bit better to be able to see it. I think because even like you said, though, we did wait in a queue where our queue essentially started. We went through extended queue, but again, that's annual pass holder preview, so I'm sure all the back and forths weren't all completely open or anything like that. And maybe it's just such a great, swiftly loading coaster that it works, but you know, you'll probably have a few more minutes to get your eyes to adjust, but it's right there in the middle, and it's such a great, like, just so great. I love that.
Yeah. And you know, the Easter eggs just keep rolling from there. And with what Rhino said too, try to take time to stop and look as restrictions start to lessen. The good part is you will have more time in these queues, because the more space you have, the more everyone's running through it in such a quick period. And the more you can fit in the room, the more you'll be able to stop and see and enjoy all this stuff too. And a big problem we were having is that, you know, some people were stopping for photos, and then they would then run ahead to catch up to the end of the line. And then you have to decide, am I going to stop and get the photos I want? Or am I going to just keep up with the front of the line too? So that's a problem that any good queue has, though, is where it's like the ideal is that everyone keeps moving at the same pace and gets their photos and videos as quickly as possible and then moves on with it. But the same thing would happen all the time at Forbidden Journey. We'd get just massive backups, and then people would run through it and not get a chance to look at the details. And like in the next room, as we're going through the line in this order, this is where a lot of the Easter eggs come once again. In this room, you'll start to see Mr. DNA talk about the locker situation that you have coming up ahead. And then our first character from the movies, you have why can't
Dr.
I
Wu.
think of Dr. Wu? Thank you. It was completely slipping out of
P.D.
my
Wong.
head. Yeah. And he's starting to set up the story as well too, and offer some instructional commentary on the Velocicoaster. But in this room, this is where you have the Jeff Goldblum book reference, the Dr. Ian Malcolm, the God,
Dr. Grant's book.
I'm terrible. Dr. Allen.
Alan. You have Dr. Grant, and Ellie Sattler's book is in there as well. In the same one as Dr. Grant, which is great.
Yeah, and then the cool part too is it's really easy to spot. There is a little, it looks like a little small model of the coaster, and that's all I thought it was too, and was wondering like, oh, there's this like remote control up above it. And I guess if you look at the details close enough, it's like it shows there that it is a training toy. It is the roller coaster car with the remote control because it's like an RC training toy. So they
For the
would,
Raptor.
yeah, for the Raptors to train them to run with the roller coaster cars. I'm like, that is a clever little Easter egg, and it tells so much of the story right there in terms of how they trained
Yeah.
the Raptors to run with the coaster. Like it's little things like that. They didn't need to do it, but then it sets up there's actually a story to this attraction.
Yeah, and I have to say that I love the sizing of the rooms that you're in too, because it feels like, for me, like the Transformers queue is one of the hardest queues for me to be in for an extended period of time, because every room looks almost exactly the same, and that alarm is going off the entire time. And this one is like you said, you open and you're in this wide open room, and you've got this big raptor statue, and they're playing that like dramatic, the Jurassic Park like music, and then you've got the sound of the raptor, and the lighting kind of changes, and Mr. DNA is talking about the raptors, and then that next room is this tight little walkway where you get to see the real car go by, and then those raptors come through, and that's cool too, because it's just like it's a little smaller, but then that locker room, or the raptor training room, is so cool too, because like it has those Easter eggs, but it's also small. So these are a couple of small rooms in a row now. And then the next room that you're going to talk about here in a second, which is cool because it makes it feel like I've moved.
Yeah.
And then, you move again, and then you're in like the final stage after that. So it's like, it feels so different from place to place. So even if you're stuck in there for a little while, it's going to make you feel like you're still like on this journey.
Well, and that's the next room right after the one with all the Easter eggs and the screen is then you move in to where you actually see two of the Velociraptors in their holding cages, and they are moving, and
they look so good.
They are real.
Yeah. So you know what, I spent like I like literally was like standing there for like 10 minutes just staring at it to watch it keep moving. And I just was like, go around me. Was the eyeball.
Yeah.
They did such a good job of making the eyeball. It's crazy. It's so like it looks like the eye in the movie, but it kind of moves like, and like and the raptor looks so much like you could touch it and know exactly what it feels like, and it like breathes and it kind of like watches you, and it's just like, oh my God, that's like my whole life, we grew up watching Jurassic Park, and now we are sitting there right face to face with a raptor. Like it's so, I thought the meet and greet with the raptor was great. This is like next level. Like this is straight out of the movie.
No, it's really perfect. It is a huge accomplishment for Universal. They just keep upping themselves in terms of how realistic they're able to make these creatures. And it's I feel like they've always done a decent job, but starting with Kong, with the giant Kong at the end of the Skull Island ride, it's like since then it just feels like it's a different game for them now. And these Velociraptors are amazing. They are so cool, and it's just as they're shaking in the cage, it just you feel like they're actually real. And
it's crazy because I did see a clip of like, maybe a spoiler alert, I don't know, the one in Hollywood.
We're in the spoiler section.
People know that they added the Indominus Rex to the end of the river adventure out there and turned that into a Jurassic World river adventure. And like, I've watched the video like repeatedly, and I can't wait to see it with my own eyes. But on the video, I'm like, this Indominus Rex animatronic looks like fantastic. And that's why it's great that we're getting a little bit of that too. Like we have the Raptors out here and the Indominus Rex is out there, and I'm like, they're doing some stuff with their own versions of these like animatronic things like that look texturally and performatively different than Disney. So it's like it's unique, but it's good still. It's good. Like it's great quality. It's not like, oh, it's good for them. It's like, no, it's good for anybody.
Yep. And our final portion of the queue is where we finally get to see Bryce Dallas Howard and Chris Pratt in their roles.
Claire and Owen.
Claire and Owen, thank you very much. And this is our safety spiel and the final little bit of the story, and telling you that it's a roller coaster in the park where the raptors that have been trained to hunt, and they can be controlled, but it's at the end of the day, they're wild creatures. Like anything can happen. And of course, Owen, just like in the movies, he is a realist in terms of knowing these are dinosaurs, and they could do anything they want. But it sets up that story, and it's a cute little Q video. It's not too long. I think it's about like 4 minutes. And when it is crazy and they have all the down and backs in that room open up, I'm sure you'll be able to get the full story. But like the first time that we walked through, we were maybe in there for like 30 seconds total. So
yeah,
I could barely get anything from
it.
But
nothing of the video. But I will say that I love that room and when they load you on the coaster, because aesthetically it fits in so well with the scene in Jurassic World where Claire is looking at the Indominus Rex through the window. And so it's like visually, I'm like, this is Jurassic World. This is what their facilities look like. This is where Claire would be watching over the raptor cage, the paddock and stuff like that. And it's great. I just love how it straight up, like, I want to be able to stand and look out the window, like, because that was one of the posters. It was her looking out the window and the nose of the Indominus Rex on the other side. So I just love that they've like kind of recreated that for this raptor paddock.
Yeah, I love it too. And that takes us, to the where you're loaded, and then it goes from there. We have a total of 12 total rows. I know I sat in rows 1, 3, I want to say 4, 7, and 11.
We definitely did 5.
5. You did 5? We did 5. Maybe I did it. Maybe I did 1,
5,
3.
I think was the first one we did the media day. I'm pretty sure we were like right kind of in the middle of that 5 or 6.
I think I did 1, 3, 5, 6, 7, 11 were the different rows that I rode in. I probably should have tried to ride in every single one of them. And you rode the very back row in 12, and then along with all the different rows that I just mentioned. The one thing I guess we should have...
I rode in 2 because I wouldn't go in the first row with you again.
That is true. That is true. The one thing we should have said out of the spoiler section of all of this is the feeling of coming out of your seat obviously freaks a lot of people out. And if you have long legs like me, you can brace yourself even in the front rows, so the even number ones, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11. But we quickly found out that if you sit in the even number of rows, because of the way the cars are designed, you can actually put your feet on the seat backs behind you, not like all the way up. There's a little ledge that you can put your feet on, and it does help you kind of push back in your seat a little extra.
It helped me a lot.
Little extra brace. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a definite, like, I definitely liked riding in those rows better because I like to have that sense of security that I'm somehow going to be able to brace my body.
Yeah. And as far as my preferences go, knowing that we rode the back, the middle, multiple times the front, for me, I would say I'm definitely a front row person all the way. If I had a choice of where I would want to sit, it would almost always be the front. I know that's what a lot of people love, and there will be a front row line that people can wait the extra time in. As long as it's not super crazy, they will accommodate it. But to me, it got the most airtime than any other row. You have the view of looking out straight in front of you and being able to see everything so clearly. It was an all over. It was a great ride. And then the top hat section, you get that extra pause of looking down. And then I did like the middle sections a lot too, right in the middle. That did give it a nice balanced ride. The best of both worlds. There was some of those going over the top hat. You had a nice long pause while you were up there. A little bit of airtime, not nearly as much as the front at all. And it was very balanced. It's a balanced ride right in the middle. The back, very rough, obviously.
That was the scariest for me.
I don't think I saw any benefit of sitting in the back because of the launches. really the only time that the only time that
I
I
was going
felt
to
like
say
there
the
was a
launches
difference
was the only part.
Yeah, it was specifically the launch up over the top hat. Instead of having that stall where you're kind of looking down or like right at the tip top, with the top hat, you know, by the time the front of the coaster starts going down, you whip up and over. So you get a lot of airtime over the top hat in the back. But other than that, it's I didn't care for the back. I thought it was an overrated experience.
Oh, for me, I would tell anybody, like, I agree with you. I think the middle to the front is the best areas on here. Like, I legitimately was like, in terms of it being fun, scary, or like legit, I'm uncomfortable. I don't want to ride in this row ever again. I do not want to ever ride in the back row again. I know the coaster is safe. I know it's everything, but it's like what you said. It was a completely different experience, and I was just like, I didn't like, I guess going from the front to the back because it was so different. I was just like, I don't, and it's just subtlety because I'm so aware of my body when we're on an attraction like this. So it's really ultimately not that difference, but there is no slow when you go through that second launch. You just come around that corner and you're already going because the thing is already pushed forward. So you don't even have a second to really be like, oh, here it goes. You know, you're just already being pulled along. And I think ultimately like that, yes, it does give you a different perspective because you're kind of seeing the rest of the coaster twist before you start to twist, which is interesting. But yeah, ultimately I was like middle to forward for sure.
And I should have mentioned this while we were going through the queue tour, but it's important for people. I would have already started this back up. For the most part, we're over the spoilers, I think. There's there is one thing. We will not specifically state what it is out loud. We'll leave some surprises for everyone, but there is an audio clip that plays as you are coming back into the station and finishing your ride, that either is a nice reference to what's happening over in Hollywood, or potentially even a reference to what might be the future of Jurassic Park and Jurassic World in our park in Islands of Adventure.
I didn't take it like that at all. That's interesting. Both of those theories are interesting to me because I didn't take it as either two of those. I thought it just was solidifying when the attraction took place in Jurassic World.
Yeah, I think that too,
so
but
that's what I thought. But
I think it also kind of ties into the rest. And so that's the only reason I say it too is we didn't talk about the lockers during the spoiler section. There is a portion of the queue that lots of people will take photos in videos of because it's a really cool moment. And that is your last portion before then you put your stuff away in lockers. And I love this because what is one of the biggest complaints of riding Rip Ride Rockit or the Hulk? It's that you have to put your stuff in a locker outside, then go stand in a line without your phone. And I know we shouldn't be glued to our phones and devices while we're in a queue. We should be talking to our friends and family around us, interact, pay attention to what's happening. But yeah, you still want your phone, especially if you're like a parent who sends your kids off into the ride. And so having the lockers be right before you start to see the stars of Jurassic World, that portion of the queue where you get to see them, it's really nice because most of the wait you'll be able to have your phone with you, and then you get to the lockers, and it's a great shape. It's like a horseshoe shaped room with all of the lockers, and you put your stuff in on one side. You have to take your park ticket with you because that's how you'll unlock it. But when you get off the ride, ultimately you come in on the other side of the lockers. So then you pull it out from the other side, and it's genius. It was so smart. I said it before in our last video on this, I'll say it again. Whoever came up with this concept for Universal and implemented in this, if there's ever a Universal Legends Award, they need to be part of it because it's the best locker experience now at Universal, better than the rest. And the one thing I do have to say about it though is it's the small lockers. If you have big items, you'll have to pay for those lockers inside the Discovery Center. And you can put your backpacks away if they won't fit. Your really big, massive things, those will go in there. Keep your phone with you, then you'll put those in the free locker. And it's pretty amazing. And in the locker area where I say maybe we're learning about a hint of where the park's going to go in the future in Jurassic Park and Jurassic World, because there's all these awesome attraction posters that represent things you can see in the land, and maybe even things that are coming soon. And I think they did a fantastic job with this coaster. We're done with our discussion on it now. It's just, you have to ride it. June 10th.
Yeah.
Ride it. Get there. Ride it. Maybe June 11th. Might be busy on June 10th. But do it.
I think it's going to be busy always. I think it's going to be one of those attractions that is always hopping.
I hope so. So any last thoughts on it, Rhino?
No, I think you said it great. I think it's crazy that they have another must-do attraction in this park again, and they have re-solidified that, hey, we know roller coasters. Good for them.
Yeah, I think there's a bigger discussion coming up here with us that I was having with our friend Carly about I feel like the war between USF and IOA is back on now, and that's very exciting. That these two parks are going head to head for which is the better one. If you only had one day at Universal, which one do you choose? I think it might be back in IOA's court now, but USF still has a lot for it, and this is all pre-Epic Universe. We still have more coming. It's an exciting time to be a Universal fan, a UO fan, if you will. I winked for people.
Oh my gosh, I see what you just did. Wow. It's like when they say the name in the movie.
Yeah, it is. Okay, we're going to transition here into an update on the safety protocols at Universal. They recently, as of May 6th, they changed up their safety protocols. Obviously, times are changing and more of the world is getting vaccinated. CDC is loosening some of their requirements, or their guidance, not requirements, I should say, but their guidance on how people can, experience the world, considering so many were not able to experience it for such a long time. And with that, Universal has updated their safety protocols. The big two being, you no longer have to go through the temperature check at City Walk or any of the parks. The temperature check is done, and I'm kind of happy for it. I think, I think we've learned so much about the pandemic over the months and year that it's been, that, the temperature check was one of those nice things to know, but ultimately I don't think probably super, super necessary to have in terms of safety protocols. The other one that I'm a little bummed about is that the distancing now has gone down from 6 feet of distance to 3 feet of distance. And, for any of you out there wondering how long 3 feet is, basically stick out your arm and you're basically at 3 feet. And I have said it on this. I don't think I've really said it that much on this show, because the show has been so back and forth on episodes lately that, I probably haven't. But on other podcasts that we do on the Diz Unplugged podcast network, I like space. Not because I'm afraid of catching coronavirus or any other diseases from anyone. It's just I like space. I value space. Body heat transfers when you're too close. You can feel each other. It is uncomfortable in Florida in 100 degrees when someone you don't know, it feels like they're on top of you. So I just like space in general.
Breath is on your neck.
Yeah. Ugh. It happens. It's gross. I don't like it. And, it's, however, to be completely honest, and I've been saying this for a long time, at both Disney and Universal, people have given up on the distancing for the longest time. Like in regular areas, people stopped trying to avoid each other a month after the parks reopened. And in the queues, it was, it's hit or miss on whether or not people pay attention to the floor markings on where to stand. And, I would get yelled at saying, like, no, when I was there, I saw lots of people following it and I followed the rules. Like, it's the one time I was live streaming and I pointed down to the floor and said, seriously, people are following the instructions here? Look at this. It never happened. So, I think ultimately it's a great step forward. It's a great step to getting more people in the parks, capacity back up, taking care of the lines so they're not so out of control. Still, I think we should all be mindful though about personal space in general moving forward.
Good God.
Let's just think about it. Not in terms of am I going to catch anything, any illness that I don't want. Let's think about it as, maybe we don't need to be so close together all the time. Let's not fill in all the available space. Let's let each other breathe and relax a little bit.
Let's not be up a stranger's butt.
Yeah. But Rhino, you've been definitely a little bit tighter on how you feel about a lot of protocols. Are you fazed by any of these?
I mean, I'm not happy, but like for basically the same reason you just said. I like my personal space, and so that's a big factor in it for me. I mean, the ultimate goal here is that life goes back to as normal as it can be, right? So it's this is something that we knew was going to come and eventually, and I think it's what's difficult for me is that it is emotionally exhausting to be a person who follows the rules as closely as they can at all times, because that's just the type of person I am. To be constantly bombarded with people who just don't, I almost said a bad word, don't care, and that it's just like that, or they're ignorant to it, or it's just like it feels all very like selfish and like, why are you the crazy one? Because you're trying to follow the rules to the place where you're at. Because it's like when you go over a friend's house, it's like when you're a kid, you go over your friend's house. If that friend's mom doesn't want you to have your shoes on in the house, you don't wear your shoes in the house. You don't just, and if you say, well, I don't want to take my shoes off, then you go outside and play. You don't get to come inside of the house. That's the rule of the house. Like, it's just such a simple thing that seems to be lost. So I don't know. 3 feet to me just seems like it's like how far away ideally people would normally be away from me. But I mean, I guess it doesn't really change anything. I don't really do a lot of attractions, to be honest with you, still, because I'm still a little like weirded. I don't like being inside for long periods of time, really. And I am suffering from that reintroduction anxiety stuff, but the change how I feel about the park one way or another. No. I think because it ultimately, I feel like it's like what you said. It already essentially was what you're describing. Yeah. So it's like we're already, if you're somebody who's going all the time, I don't know that this actually changes anything other than now officially they have to stop yelling at people in the queue.
Yeah. Pretty much with that. So we'll keep you updated as other safety protocols change. Protocols? I don't know where I was going at with that. But
ghost protocols.
We'll keep you updated on as changes continue to be made to the safety protocols. And yeah, once I know the next big one that people want is when will we get rid of masks? And I don't have an answer for you. I'm not even going to guess about it. All I'm going to say is this. All I'm going to say, and this is not a political statement, it's that I think we should all remember, if we are sick, not with necessarily COVID or anything else, but moving forward, if we are sick, we all have so many masks. We need to choose to either not go to places or maybe consider bringing the mask and throwing it on, saying, you know what, I don't want to give anyone the cold that I have or the.
That's what I was just gonna say. I feel like because we've kind of like warned them for so long now, I was like, the next time I get a cold, which is bound to happen as life returns to normal. I know none of us have had one in like 15 months or anything like that, but I am basically just like, now I know if I have to like go to the grocery store or something like that, like I know I can like throw the mask on, or if I'm going to the doctor to see the doctor about said cold, I can now be like, oh, I'm just going to wear this mask or whatever. Even if it's like, I don't have a temperature, but I think I'm feeling under the weather or something like that. I don't know. It makes you very much aware of being like, let's just not dive into a crowd of people unprotected and make everybody sick at the same time,
Yep. Not political, just saying, let's be nice to each other. Let's try to protect each other.
Oh, no.
Let's enjoy humanity.
Come flu season, when we go to the movies during flu season from now on, I'm probably just popping that mask on just to be safe. Yeah. Like, I am not. I do not want. I don't want to deal with any holiday ills or whatnot ever again.
Yeah, I will. I know I'm going to practice it because as a person who constantly would go out sick and I still wash my hands and things like that. But as someone who before would go out when I was sick and just not care about other people, I'm trying to change, trying to be a better person. So I'm going to do my part with it. But we've got one last part of this show to talk about before we completely move on for good. And that is talking about something that we technically, as of the time of recording this, we're recording this one a little bit in advance before release. But so the information will probably be revealed by the time this is released. But there was a Creator Day event that happened at Universal Orlando for a lot of the local vloggers and content creators, not necessarily on the media level per se, but it's the people you watch on YouTube. They were invited out to, and that's still a terrible example because a lot of people are watching this on YouTube. But anyways, I digress. A whole bunch of creators were invited out to Universal, and they got a sneak peek of the next festival that is coming to Universal Orlando that I didn't know about at the very least, and it's going to be a summer food festival. And I'm thinking, I watched a video that Thrill Geek released. Our friends Clint and his team at Thrill Geek, they posted a video that had some of the chefs talking about what was going to happen with the food festival, and they mentioned that at least the date, the 15th, in there. So I'm not sure if that meant it was starting May 15th, if it's starting sooner, if it's June 15th. Again, I don't know, because as of the time of recording this, it's not officially out there, but they are going to continue the festival atmosphere at Universal Studios Florida and Volcano Bay with another food festival. And there's going to be dining set up around Universal Studios Florida. Battery Park is going to be the location. That's kind of the spot right outside of Mel's and Transformers that has the overhang with the picnic tables looking out onto the lagoon. There's going to be a food truck by Fast and Furious Supercharged, a food truck by Lombard's Landing, a tent on the bridge between London and Springfield, and they are going to carry over some of the food items that were available at Universal Mardi Gras, like the Cuban sandwiches, and then there are going to be so many more new items. There's going to be elotes two different ways. There's going to be one on the cob and then one just in a bowl. There's going to be a grilled cheese food truck and with macaroni and cheese too, with items like carnitas mac and cheese. There's going to be yuca fries, a mango nata drink, tripleta sandwich, and Volcano Bay, as I said, is getting in on the action too. And they're even going to have some specialty items added to that park, like a pork adobo bowl. And I was a huge fan of Universal Mardi Gras food doing the food festival this year. So I'm elated about this. I think the fact that they're setting up extra unique, interesting dining options throughout the summer months, yeah, sign me up for it.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like this video, I was like, oh, I love a good tripleta sandwich. Like it is one of my faves, and I'm excited for that elotes, like especially the one that is in the bowl. But all these look. They did such a good job, like you said, with the Mardi Gras food that I am just like, oh, when it was coming to an end, I'm like, no, it's such a shame because I really like the booth. So I'm happy this is coming around, and it makes me excited too because also I don't know, is this a precursor to maybe we're going to get some more special food items during Halloween Horror Nights this year? So I'm hoping that they kind of carry that through into that, and it won't just be. We love a twisted tater. We love our pizza fries, but like, I would love to see like just a little bit more because, if you do stay and scream, you're like, you get hungry pretty quickly. So yeah. I'm hoping this kind of becomes a regular thing for them.
Yeah. They have up their game with the food at Halloween Horror Nights as the years have progressed. And I think this year could be the biggest year for them in terms of food. And I was following along today with people who are inside Universal and saw posts that the Tribute store is undergoing changes right now, obviously switching over from Mardi Gras into its next iteration. Not sure what that's going to be. Again, recording this early, by the time that this releases, it'll probably all be out there, and we're going to have another episode where we go over all of this with more detail now. So I'm not going to go too long with it on this, but I think Universal is making some very smart decisions right now in terms of these festivals, and it really is a nice it's a nice change at Universal. It keeps it fresh. It keeps you wanting to come back on the dining side of things. And I can't say that was always the case for Universal, but now it's starting to be a real thing, and I'm here for it.
It feels very rewarding for an annual pass holder, right? Because it's like what you said, not knowing the dining, you have your favorite spots or whatever, but this really freshens that up for us. It gives us that extra reason to be like, oh, you know what? Let's just pop in and get some food over there, or try this or try that. And so I appreciate that, because I think they know, probably went through this thing where when they reopened the parks, it was a lot of annual pass holders. So that's where it feels like a great time to be an annual pass holder. And I'm not being like, get your annual pass, but I'll tell anybody, I think that the Orlando annual pass, or the Universal Orlando pass, good Lord, I can't speak. The Universal Studios or
Universal Orlando
Resort
annual pass
is the best value for an annual pass in Orlando, I think, right now, still.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm right on board with you. And remember too, just because we're locals talking about Universal Orlando's annual pass program, you don't have to be a local to get one too. If you want to visit Universal more often and you live out of state, you can also be a pass holder and come as much as you want, take advantage of the discount, the other incentives that are thrown in with the annual pass too. So don't just think it's a locals thing. I know people who came out of state to Universal Mardi Gras at least 3 times over the course that it ran from February to May. So that right there still holds true, that it's anyone who wants to travel often can be an annual pass holder, or you can even still feel like the annual pass holder in that way. So it's always an option to consider it. But very, very excited to find out more about this elusive summer food festival, and we'll cover that as well in the upcoming weeks. But I believe that's it for our show this week. So thank you very much, Rhino, for having this discussion with me.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you. And of course, if we got you motivated now to travel to Universal Orlando and you want to support us, Rhino and I here on the screen right now, please consider booking your next Universal Orlando vacation through Dreams Unlimited Travel. So get that free, no obligation quote today at dreamsunlimitedtravel.com. And one more time, let me run through it. If you are listening to this anywhere, make sure you are subscribed and leaving us positive feedback on Apple Podcasts. And if you are watching this on YouTube, please hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and also please make sure you're leaving your comments, questions, and video suggestions down below. It's UOFan channel. We need to know where to take this channel, where to go with it. So leave lots of comment and feedback on it. I really want to know. But ultimately, thank you so much to everyone for listening and watching. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you again real soon with another episode of the Diz Unplugged Universal Edition. But until then, remember, we still have not changed the name.